All right. Happy Shakespeare. Happy January, Shakespeare friends. We are going to go through some audition monologues for Henry VI, Part 1, an underdone play, unless you are in Austin, Texas this spring, where we are doing it for our one rehearsal show. We're really excited about this. There are some gems of speeches in this show and in the Henry VI's in general. So as we go through, you'll see a lot from the Henry VI series, especially since we see a lot of the characters as they progress through this saga. So I think that the Henry Sixes get a lot of crap for how good they are. They're like monologues are us. If you need a monologue for a Shakespeare audition, look in the Henry Sixes because you are going to find something perfect for you. So as usual, we are going to go through the different characters, the different character types, and then a couple different audition monologues for each. So, we're going to start with the list of characters. Now, this is from the full play. Generally, I cut this down a lot for our version because the Henry Sixes need a lot of editing, but we've got King Henry, who technically, when Henry V died, young Henry VI was like a 7-month-old baby. Shakespeare paints him as like a young teen-ish, who grows up through the Henry Sixes to be an adult. You can really play King Henry at any age of like toddler, I guess. He has lines, but child through adult. So we've got King Henry, and then we've got so many of our like iconic English lords and noblemen. So Exeter, Bedford, Gloucester, Suffolk. We've got Plantagenet, who becomes the Duke of York. Very important if you are into the second couple Henry Sixes as well as Richard III. We've got Somerset. We've got Winchester, who becomes the cardinal, the Archbishop of Canterbury, maybe, some sort of big fancy priest. Warwick, Salisbury, Vernon. We've got all of these pretty, I guess, famous if you're into Shakespeare history plays, nobles, and then you've got some of your soldiers. You've got your John Talbot and your Talbot, who Talbot is, the most famous English warrior, John Talbot, his son. And then you've got all of your soldiers, messengers, serving men who really get caught up in these noble squabbles. On the French side, you've got Charles the Dauphin. You've got Joan of Arc, also of famous fame. And then you have your standard set of French noblemen, Alençon Ronier, the bastard of Normandy, maybe. Um, Margaret, who plays a very small part in Henry VI Part 1, but a very big part in Parts 2, 3, and Richard III. Incredible progression of a character. Probably the only character in Shakespeare who has as good of a progression, maybe not even as good, is Hal, Henry V, but Margaret is up there. All right, so we don't have a lot of character variety in these plays. We pretty much have our petty diplomats who are fighting each other for control of young Henry, King Henry's mind. They're trying to get him to do what they want him to do. We've got exasperated warriors who are just trying to win. We've got on the English side, we're just trying to keep France. And on the French side, we're just trying to get France back from England. And then you've got normal people who are just like, oh, I guess it's another war happening. Cool. Oh, the bishop and the that other guy are fighting. I guess I got to pick Oh, you want me to pick a white rose or okay. We got a lot of people really caught up in the squabbles here. And then you have Joan. She doesn't fit in any other category, and she fits every category. She's a character in her own right. So we've got these kind of buckets that we're putting folks in. Casting for this show or auditioning for this show, I guess, is pretty easy because you can really tailor like your audition to fit a couple of these groups if you're doing two contrasting pieces. And they are hitting a wide variety of characters, especially if you don't know a lot about this show. You're casting your net wide because there are not a ton. It's not like you're auditioning for a Romeo and a Mercutio and a Tybalt and a Juliet and a Lord Capulet or whatever. So let's start with our petty diplomats. So we've got three monologues for this set of characters. We're going to start with Gloucester in Henry IV, Part 3. And this one is, I mean, Henry VI, part three. This isn't, there is no Henry. I'll change this. These are from this is from Henry VI, Part 3. And then Old Clifford is from Henry VI, Part 2. I've been doing this like flip of Henry's 4 and 6 just because my brain is where we are. Cedar season is in full swing, and I apologize for that. So this is Henry VI, Part 3. Act 3, Scene 2. And this really like sums up the noble attitude towards the other nobles. So we get this start. I, Edward, will use women honorably. Would he were wasted, marrow, bones, and all, that from his loins no hopeful branch may spring to cross me from the golden time I look for. Oh, you have this like brutal ambition in Gloucester who is taking it out on Edward. There is so much like angst and hope here, where you just ooh I can add colors to the chameleon, change shapes with Proteus for advantages, and set the murderous Machiavel to school. Can I do this and not get a crown? You have so much like desire. And this is one of those speeches that this is where you see how Richard III becomes Richard III, right? Um, it's a really beautiful, like desirous speech. And you see so much of that in the noblemen in Henry VI Part 1, where they're trying to really like push their own agendas forward. Similar with this Old Clifford speech, in part two, Act 4, Scene 8, is Cade, son of Henry V, that you thus do exclaim you'll go with him. This is where we see some of those alliances start to be questioned. So we have the White Rose, the Red Rose factions that we start to see. We have the Gloucester versus Winchester debacle in part one. And you've got a lot of folks on the outside saying like, you're choosing that side. That's the side you're going with. And that's what this Old Clifford speech really does. Will he conduct you through the heart of France and make you meanest of earls and dukes? He hath no home, no place to fly to. Like, why would you do this instead of what, we're trying to get you to do on the other side? Again, it is that like ambition. It is the manipulative nature of a lot of these diplomats. And then we've got from Henry VIII, Act 1, Scene 1. Pray give me favor, sir. This cunning cardinal, the articles of the combination drew himself as pleased, and they were ratified as he cried, thus let be. Like, again, this is so Gloucester coded in part one, because you see that like fight against the church that he has and this cunning cardinal. You're instilling those seeds of distrust in Winchester in part one. And so like you're again that manipulation, you're using your words to your advantage. All of these noblemen, all of these diplomats have such command over their words and such control over how their words affect the characters that they're speaking to. They're all trying to get what they want through words because they're not going to pick up a sword. Their pen is mightier or whatever. So you've got three speeches here that really encapsulate the ambition, the manipulation, and the like talking their way into things. All right, then we've got our exasperated warriors. These are folks who are less, maybe less poetic, but no less wordy. They still use their words quite a bit, but they're a little bit more brutal and a little bit more maybe straightforward with what they want. We've got this. This is actually Henry IV, part two. The prologue is rumor, and I think this speech is really interesting to me, of interest to me, because it it gives this like report of a battle from a really different perspective. So, which of you will stop the vent of hearing when loud rumor speaks? I run before King Harry's victory, who in bloody field by Shrewsbury hath beaten down young Hotspur and his troops, quenching the flame of bold rebellion even with the rebels' blood. But what mean I to speak so true at first? You've got this like almost they are questioning their place while they're putting their report forward. So a lot of these warriors are kept down by the petty diplomats that we saw in the previous slide. So they're questioning this, even though they have all of the place and the knowledge to report on these battles and these actions. They are also pushing their own agendas, of course. So you see some of that manipulative talk, but it's a little bit clunkier, a little bit more kind of obtuse and action oriented than the diplomats. Then you've got Gloucester. Again, the same character turns into Richard III, but different way of using his speech to get what he wants. So I cannot joy until I be resolved, where our right valiant father is become. I saw him in the battle range about and watched him how he signaled Clifford forth. A lot of these speeches are battle reports because you want to show that as a warrior, you are able to give that excitement, give that like I was there and I was part of it attitude and emotion. These should be really active, even though they're not in the middle of an action, they still are reporting vibes. You want to make sure that you're getting across the emotion of what is happening in front of you right now. And if you can capture that excitement and that energy, this is going to be a really great set of speeches to use for one of these warrior characters. This middle one, especially, really good for Talbot because you have that set apart. He is set apart. He thinks of himself much more highly than everyone else does. I mean, everyone thinks of Talbot highly, but like people underestimate Gloucester, and Talbot still like feels himself in this superior position, rightfully so, but it has that air of superiority about it. It also, I think this like middle and end part really captures some of the beauty that we see when young Talbot dies. Obviously, it's flipped a father to a son rather than a son to a father, but this so fared our father with his enemies, so fled his enemies, my warlike father. Methinks 'tis prize enough to be his son. See how the morning opes her golden gates and takes her farewell of the glorious sun. You've got that like farewell to John Talbot that Talbot gives. That's really, really beautiful and heartwarming that this speech kind of echoes. And then again, we have young Clifford, Henry VI, Part 2 from 5.2. Shame and confusion, all is on the rout. Fear frames disorder, and disorder wounds where it should guard. O war, thou son of hell. This is more of the exasperated warrior part of exasperated warrior, the more exasperated part, because it really shows how brutal war is. And the warriors who are the ones winning or losing are the ones who maybe are the most frustrated with it. The petty noblemen that we just talked about, they're the ones pulling the strings, but the warriors are the ones doing it. And this speech from young Clifford really shows like the chaos and confusion and loss in the center of it all. All right. Normal people just trying to get through. We've got Jack Cade. Again, this is from Henry VI, Part 2. Not Henry IV. These all are, oh my gosh. These are all Henry VI. Again, I'll go change them. Embarrassing. So this is from Jack Cade, and Jack Cade is a just a normal guy who rises up for a rebellion in Henry VI Part 2 to try and be like, hey, all these people who are rich and have money and are calling the shots, like, don't actually do anything. Like, who are they? I could lead as well, maybe. Um, So what, Buckingham and Clifford, how are you so brave? And you base peasants, do you believe him? Will your needs be hanged with your pardons around your neck? He is rallying the troops. He is trying to get anyone to be on his side. And this is very much echoed in part one, where you see these factions of normal people rallying for Winchester or rallying for Gloucester or rallying for the White Rose faction or rallying for the Red Rose. You see them starting to like pull in the masses to their side using these cries of come fight for us. So you see that here. I will make a shift for one. And so God's curse light upon you all. It's so big. They're speaking to crowds of so many people. And especially for something like what we're doing, which is a free park show, we want to see you fill that space with like getting this group of hundreds of people to like be on your side. We've got the second slash first keeper in Henry VI, Part 3. This is kind of a mashup of two different people's speeches. And this shows they're basically capturing the king. Oh, you're the traitor king. Will come with us. And I think this can be a really active. We've got a lot in part one. We've got a lot of like arrests and captures and soldiers kind of like winning and taking possession of towns or people. This would be a really good one to kind of show that these are normal people arresting a king. They're putting themselves in this place of superiority against someone who is far superior to them. And you see that again a lot in part one, where you're trying to kind of fake that courage and fake that command. So seeing that kind of depth and mix of personality, I think would be really fun with this speech. And then we've got a messenger from Henry IV of Henry VI, Part 3. Act 2, Scene 1. And this is, there are so many messengers in Part 1 where they're reporting on the battles. Now, this is a very different position to report the battles from than we saw in the warrior section, because the warriors were part of it and reporting at it. The messengers maybe observed and are reporting at it. So it's a great chance to show some range or some different sides of characterization with this. Environed he was with many foes and stood against them as the hopes of Troy against the Greeks that would have entered Troy. Like it's this like really dramatic reenactment of what happened. Again, a lot of chance to be really active here with this monologue. All right, and then finally we have our girl Joan, a category all by herself. I've got 3 monologues here. I think there's a lot you can do with Joan because she's so powerful and she has so many incredible speeches. But I went with 2 Shakespeare and 1 non-Shakespeare for this because I wanted to kind of work outside the box a little bit. So I've got this Phoebe monologue from As You Like It, which I think would be considered overdone in an audition series for a comedy. I don't necessarily think it's going to be overdone for Henry VI, Part 1. I mean, again, your chances to audition for this show are limited, but using something like this that shows a lot of personality and shows a lot of, I've used the word superiority a lot, but so many of these characters do have an air of superiority about them in the Henry Sixes, in Shakespeare's history plays in general. And Phoebe really pushes this forward. I would not be thy executioner, I fly thee, for I would not injure thee. Like, oh, she's got so much pride and sass and strength in her. If my eyes can wound, now let them kill thee. Now counterfeit to swoon. Why now fall down, or if thou canst not, for shame, for shame. Like, ugh, it's so different than a lot of women's speeches in Shakespeare. It just has an air that Joan has because she knows how good she is. And she knows that she should get whatever she wants. And Phoebe really is the closest character, I think, to that from another play. Then we've got Margaret, who also thinks she can get what she wants and does get what she wants most of the time, some of the time, maybe not all of the time, definitely not all of the time. This is from Henry VI, Part 3. And this is one of her scenes with Suffolk, who she is having an affair with while she is married to King Henry VI. And she's got so much strength in this. And the way she speaks down to Suffolk or about King Henry here is so similar to the way that Joan kind of acts around the French court and about the English court. Like, you're going to let them keep our lands, the English, who have nothing and are nothing, or like you haven't been able to protect our lands, French, who are everything. Like, you've got this power in this monologue. The College of Cardinals would choose him Pope and carry him to Rome and set the triple crown upon his head that were a state fit for his holiness. Like, you've got this like absolute surety of what she's saying. There is no question in anything Margaret says, and there is no question in anything Joan says either. And then We get this speech from Marlowe's Dido, Queen of Carthage. And I wanted to pull this in here because I think it shows a side of Joan that there really isn't much like the execution scene of Joan, the burning of Joan, her speech there, I guess her speeches, plural, are so powerful and so striking. And we don't get that anywhere else really in Shakespeare. And so I wanted to pull something from a female character in early modern plays that you could use and bring for a character like Joan. So this is when Dido is dying by fire of her own hand, a little bit different. But she is blaming Aeneas for driving her to kill herself. Um, so you've got all of this fire imagery and you've got all of this like blame and this hurt and this vengeance. And it is such a powerful speech. Like, just, I mean, even just read it to yourself and put it in your arsenal for any other early modern audition that you have because it's so powerful and so beautiful. God, here lie the sword that in the darksome cave he drew and swore by me to be true to me. Thou shalt burn first. Thy crime is worse than his. Here lie the garment which I clothed him in when he first came on shore. Perish thou too. Everything is just like, oh God, it's so good. Um, Use it. I want to see someone perform this monologue. Tape it and send it to me. I don't know. It's just such a great, beautiful speech, and I think would be really powerful for Joan. So that is what we've got for auditioning for Henry VI, Part One. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch and let us know. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next month with another show.